Hello, and welcome to episode 109 of Prose. This week, engage with a different type of vampire, and set out on a road trip that slouches toward eternity. I'm sure you noticed the sound quality being quite different than normal. That is because I'm on the road and I am currently recording in a closet. That will be true of at least 2, if not 4, episodes of Prose coming forth. I hope that's okay. Normally, this is where I would kindly ask for you all to follow the show on social media and subscribe to the show and rate the show and all that jazz. Though I'm a bit late to the party because of pre-recording about a month in advance, I would prefer to use this time to recommend some podcasts by Black voices that I'll link to in the show notes. Go listen to Black on the Air with Larry Wilmore, Code Switch from NPR, Star Talk Radio with Neil deGrasse Tyson, Be Heard Talk, formerly Let Your Voice Be Heard Radio with Selena Hill, Two Dope Queens with Phoebe Robinson and Jessica Williams, and Still Processing with Jenna Wortham and Wesley Morris. These are but a few of a host of amazing Black voices out on the podcast landscape. Listen to them, learn from them, respect them, amplify them. Please do click on those links. Feel free to pause the show right now and track those shows down. Subscribe to them. Go ahead, I'll wait. Did you do it? Are you subscribed? All right, in that case, thanks for listening. Let's get to the tale, shall we? This week we have Just Another and The Inescapable. Enjoy. Just Another, an original short story by Jared I. McGee. Her head was on my pillow again. She swore that fat, fluffy pillows were her preference, yet this was becoming a habit of hers, her stealing my thin wisp of a head cushion. The truth was that I don't like pillows and often chose to sleep without one altogether. I found that pillows cause the neck to crane and contort in all sorts of strange, unnatural ways. Then, why was her head's abscondence of my space so infuriating to me? The answer to that conscious question came immediately, as I'd already had the answer to it for months. I detested this woman. No, I hadn't at first, of course, but now it was time for me to sabotage what she considered to be a relationship. This was nothing new for me. I had long ago come to terms with my curse. That curse through the lens of others' eyes had been dubbed a number of things. Self-loathing, misogyny, sex addiction, fear of abandonment, fear of commitment. So many diagnoses from so many armchair psychologists throughout my life. The professional-grade therapist echoed some of these sentiments in soft science-laced drivel that was outdated as the leather furnishings and bound books around which they built their careers and their offices. My truth was far more interesting, at least to me. Vampirism comes in many forms. For untold years, tales of drinking blood or the sucking of the soul via sex have crossed cultures and decades to keep the myth of the Dracula-esque and the succubus-style vampires alive. Far less popular, though, gaining in attention from fantasy writers and folklorists everywhere, were energy vampires. Creatures that fed off any number of energies. I don't know that I'd go on record saying that designation, energy vampire, should be the one applied to me. I do know, however, that those first few months, up to a year or two into getting to know someone new, I'm at my best. I do somehow feed on those initial conversations, those getting to know yous, those wild nights of passion without abandon, even the boring backstories that get in the way of some of those wild nights. The entire process made me able to need less sleep, less food, less caffeine, less everything. I run faster. I lift more weight easier. I think quicker and deeper. My creativity goes through the roof. During those initial times feeding, for lack of a better term, on a new person, I become a superior version of myself. Now, the people of the world are largely narcissistic beings, wallowing in their own insensitivity and toxicity, bordering on outright abusive to themselves and others. I have never been that type of person, creature, whatever. I actually have always received better energy from those positive first interactions. I have never been responsible for taking away someone else's happiness via any sort of vampiric doings. Still, my bad reputation among my longer-lasting friends has been born of my need for romantic and sexual relationships to fill this hunger. Platonic energy fuels me, that is for sure. But the potency is weak and thready compared to the strong pulse that comes from initiating a new romantic or sexual relationship. When the two can mix, that wine is finer than any other. Unfortunately, this means that I had never been able to have an extended relationship with someone, at least not one that had any real hope for longevity. In realizing I had this need, I had done as much research as one can when trying to wade through idiotic kooky tales for real, historically accurate instances of other creatures even similar to me. Be that as it may, I'd done the wading and found that others, such as me, had been able to tie together all three of those: platonic, romantic, and erotic love, and do so for an extended time. That meant that there was hope for me. The only problem is that is the same hope that the normal people of the world spend billions each year to nurture, allowing it to border on misdirected obsession bordering on utter fantasy. At my advancing age, I'd only met 2, maybe 3 couples who mixed those 3 relationships and sustained them beyond the usual flash-in-the-pan peaks that defined most. So, I laid here, without a pillow, realizing that I am going to have to go through the usual distancing, damning, and detangling that is required to convince someone you've convinced that you care about them that you actually do not. Such a strange thing, that. A refusal by another to accept your need to sever ties with them. Misplaced loyalty? Refusal to lose on an investment of the most finite resource living beings have. Time? Simple stubbornness? The answers for the why vary for every person. The sun was beginning to rise in earnest, driving away the gray dregs of night and moving the world into full daylight. She was beginning to shift this way and that, the light edging her toward wakefulness. I was nocturnal, she was diurnal. Just another reason this was doomed from the get-go. My nocturnal nature was from choice, unlike those damned bloodsuckers. Curious, though. I was beginning to realize that when I fed through conversation, sex, shared time, shared experiences, it was never as potent as time drew on. Yes, I was different from your average person. My wrinkles smoothed a little and my hair degrayed a bit when I fed, for example. But it was also become rather apparent that my feeding was necessary on the feelings being reciprocal. No reciprocal feeling? Nothing. Or just this side of it. I don't think that I am immortal. I don't think I'm even ageless. That's still all yet to be determined. I do know that I am different in some ways. That much has been revealed. And yet, I am, at the end of the day, held hostage by the same set of desires that every regular Jane or Joe carries with them, burdened their entire lives. We all seek that perfect balance. That person that can be one's everything. We're all off chasing dragons, hunting unicorns, seeking chimeras. Huh, says the vampire. Thank you for listening to Just Another, an original short story by me, Jared I. McGee. Please stay with me for another short tale. This one about a never-ending road trip. Ever onward. The Inescapable, an original short story by Jared I. McGee. Take a ride on the interstate heading east. It should take what, about 8 hours to get home for Thanksgiving? Turn on a politics podcast. Save the better historical podcast for later. Just chatter that babbles in circles will do for now. Audiobooks are the ultimate treat. Leave those toward the end of the ride. 6 hours isn't that long, though. Maybe turning on audiobooks sooner than later could be okay. Those 30-hour road trips used to be brutal. 6 hours is cake. Flat East Texas landscape. Not quite desert. Not quite fields. Definitely not forests. Do they call this scrub? Grazing lands? Yeesh. Not being a native Texan showed. Music was good for driving sometimes, but not always. Sometimes it was grating, a means of ramping up one's energies, and then one had nowhere to aim that energy, being stuck in a box going 90 miles per hour. Whoops. 90 is a bit too fast. 80 is acceptable to these bored cops. Small-town cops are always scary and bored. Don't need to garner any of their attention for stupid reasons. 80 it is. Blacktop. White lines, yellow lines, the occasional tree. Could those even be called trees? These were glorified bushes and dwarven attempts at trees, and... Did you know that Finnish graduates get a top hat and a sword upon their graduation with a doctoral degree? That hat has different designs for what the studies were in. Why is this coming up in a podcast about inequity and systematic racism? Ah, here it is. Levity. Comparison. Distraction. Pass a sign that should have gone past an hour ago. How strange. Switch from the political podcast to a historical podcast with a fiery host. This will distract without being somewhat tone deaf. That last podcast was an hour long. How is that sign with mileage only just coming up? Doesn't matter. The fall of Constantinople to the forces of Sultan Mehmed II of the Ottoman Empire. The Sultan was only 21. Enough to make a person feel unaccomplished. Constantine XI, said to have died that day, the 29th of May, 1453, defending his city, his people, his empire. Supposedly, the Byzantine emperor turned down the Sultan's offer to let him out, saying, "As to surrendering the city to you, it is not for me to decide, or for anyone else of its citizens. For all of us have reached the mutual decision to die of our own free will, without any regard for our lives." Probably apocryphal. Aren't all the best lines? Supposedly, he was turned into marble and is awaiting the call to take back the city for Christendom. Right. Pass a sign that definitely went by 2 or 3 hours ago. The same one that went by earlier. Not good. Get nervous. Switch to an audiobook. They serve as the best distractions, combined with entertainment. Balm for a worrying mind. Magic. Epic battles. Fantasy lands far removed from the fearful places of this world. Get lost in the narrative. A good narrator does the body and the book good. Time begins to melt. Disappear into the well-written, if somewhat formulaic fiction. Pass the sign that definitely went by what should have been 4 or 5 hours ago. Home should be 3 hours away. This sign marks the hour endpoint. 7 hours left? Something is very wrong. Turn all media off. Wake up fully. Get the brain out of neutral and pay unflinching hyper attention to the scenery and what is going past. Deja vu. Deja vu. Blip. Blip in the matrix. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Something is very wrong. Look for somewhere to pull off. A rest stop, a gas station, a Walmart, anything. Drive. Sweat. Drive. Grit teeth. There. Not quite a gas station, more of a shack. On second glance, a very small one-pump station that is more farmer's produce stand than convenience store. 3 little women outside. Looks like a quilting circle or something. Strange to be sewing out in the lingering mugginess of summer in the Texas November evening. Pull over slowly. Try not to kick up dust and dirt and rocks on these ladies. Engage them. Be kind. Offer to buy gas. Realize the pump is out of order. Tell the women it's completely fine. Gas isn't really needed at this point. Look at the gauge and realize that's not entirely true. become a touch more fearful. The women speak, one after the other.
Destiny, doom, desire.
They cackle. Hair on the neck and arms springs to attention. It feels like the air right before lightning strikes. Ask them if they know how far it is to the border. They cackle and answer.
Destiny, doom, desire.
Tell them this sounds crazy, but explain what's been going on. How the drive has become something else, something too long and something that doesn't make sense. Ask for help. The cackling stops. They look up as one. They answer as one. So many voices from only 3 throats.
The inescapable child. Fate.
Ease back into the car quickly. Start it. Drive away as quickly as possible, not caring about kicking up dirt and dust. Hear their cackle even over the tires.
The inescapable child. Fate.
Drive. Sweat. Drive. Grit teeth. Pass the sign again. The clock and gas tank both attest to at least 7 hours of driving. This is illogical. This is impossible. Home should be 1 hour away. Cry out. Wail. Drive. Sweat. Drive. Grit teeth. Drive. Sweat. Drive. Grit teeth. The inescapable, they'd said. Fate, they'd said. Laugh with no joy, no mirth. Chafe at being made to live a metaphor. Drive. Sweat. Drive. Grit teeth. Drive. 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 Thank you for listening to The Inescapable, an original short story by me, Jared I. McGee. All music and sound effects you have heard throughout episode 109 come from YouTube's royalty-free audio library, thealwaysamazingfreesound.org, or are my own creations. Everything is being used under CC 01.0 Universal Public Domain Dedication licenses. That does it for Prose this week. Our next full episode will come in 2 weeks' time. Please do consider sharing the podcast with someone you think might enjoy these bi-weekly journeys together. And please, don't forget to check out those podcasts I put forward at the top of the program and that are in the show notes. Celebrate, learn from, and amplify Black voices, now and always. My usual plea to you comes with even more conviction of late. As you continue about your day, I hope that you'll remember to love those around you, tell them that you do, and embrace this life as it is always, stranger than fiction. Thanks for listening. Stay safe.